Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today, a replay was sent in by Andromatic02, and he is playing for our pleasure the American heavy tank that is the Super Pershing. And I want to begin this video with a little bit of a history lesson, because if you're relatively new to the game or you haven't played the tank back in the days and you don't remember any news, let me give you a little bit of a heads up. So, the Super Pershing, when it was introduced, it was battle rating 6.7. There was no T29, there was no T34 heavy tank for the Americans, and so many other vehicles were not in the game. This was when the Tiger 2, aka the King Tiger, was still truly the king on the battlefields of War Thunder, because it had a really good gun, and it still has, and it has also pretty hefty armor, and it still has, but there is now so much stuff flying around that, the Tiger 2 suffers a little bit at the hands of, all the light tanks and tank destroyers that are just so tiny, small, and furiously fast. Now, the Super Pershing was then the heavy tank counter, but it wasn't really a counter, it felt inferior in many aspects. Let's begin with the mobility. The horsepower to ton ratio is 10, and that is not all that great, right? So you feel sluggish, you're not really that maneuverable, and you don't really switch positions that quickly. Then there was the armor. Now, while the armor technically stayed the same, it changed in a little bit. So there is all this spaced armor on the turret front, and especially on the hull, where you have double spaced armor, and it is from a Panther. Beautiful first kill through the turret front of a Tiger 2 with the long-barreled 90mm shooting the M41 APCBC round. And that is a pretty good round, but that's the next part. It has a 12.5 second reload on a fully trained ace crew, right? And there is the STRV-81, and it just feels satisfying to pull the trigger because the shell does it. It has nearly 140 grams of TNT, so that is definitely an advantage. When you get a pen, this is certainly the enemy most likely doomed. So, the Super Pershing, it didn't really feel competitive to the Tiger 2, because the Tiger 2 has nowadays a 7.5 second reload. And yeah, you had to aim for much smaller weak spots on the Tiger 2 compared to the Tiger 2 just generally aiming at you and pulling the trigger. And while this demonstrated the true capability of the Long 88, because you had enough penetration to go through the 3 layers of armor, and the fuse delay is still so much that you could just bridge the gap of the spacing, right? So it would still go off in the center of the tank. And the same goes for large parts of the turret, and for tanks with not so great guns, there is still the machine gun port, the turret ring, you name it. So then the T29 came in, and it completely stole the show, because it was also introduced at battle rating 6.7. And the thing was that the T29 kind of then made all those accusations happen at Gulsion of pay to win, etc., with the hidden armor plate in front of the lower ammo rack, with the magically working gun mantlet, spaced armor, and the very quick repair on the gun breech, etc. It was a pretty nasty tank to kill, because some of the usual mechanics seem to not apply to this. And then also the American heavy tank, the T34, came in. And the T34, while only having a solid shot, had significantly more penetration. So let's compare here a little bit the reloads. Again, the Super Pershing has 12.5 second reload for all 3 shell types, and the APCBC round, which is probably the primary shell that you use, has 224mm of penetration. And nice overmatch here of the roof armor of the STRV-81. Beautiful, love it. As I said, the Tiger 2 has 7.5 second reload for, I guess, 237mm, if I'm not mistaken, something around this. And it just popped the turret like a champagne cork. Beautiful. That's already his ace, believe it or not, and he is back near C, and he is the only tank in that vicinity, so let's see if he can capture this point and clean the area. Then there is the Carnarvon with the infamous 20-pounder stabilized 6.3 second reload with APDS with 283 millimeters of penetration. It's crazy good. It's really crazy good. Then there is also the old IS-2 that once upon a time was also 6.7, the 1944 modification that is, with 20.8 second reload, and the penetration also not being that amazing and only having APCBC rounds back in the day, which was then removed, so now it's left with APHEBC, yeah, with even less penetration versus flat armor, that is. Then the T-34 with its 120mm long-barreled gun has with its AP 283mm, which is a hefty pen, and has 14.9 second reload. And the T-29 with a bigger gun with more penetration, 253mm on its APCBC versus 224 on the APCBC on the Super Pershing's 90mm, has the same reload of 20.5 seconds. And you know, there is also then a solid shot with slightly more pen, but you know, nobody cares these days. So a lot of things have changed, and I then made a video that this is actually the real 6.7 victim due to power creep, etc. And I argued that, you know, it shouldn't be the equal in the tech tree to the T29. And indeed, beautiful. Gaijin reacted. I don't know if it was down to my video or if it was anything else, but at the end of the day, they put this tank down to 6.3, and I have the suspicious feeling, together with the shell rework that happened a long time ago, the penetration mechanic rework, that they kind of fiddled around with the armor a little bit as well. So it's tankier at a lower battle rating, and that helps the tank quite a bit. But as you can see, it also can help itself versus 6.7s. Now, Andromatic02 displayed here a good mixture of action, of situational awareness, and reaction time. So far, so good. 6 kills. If I'm reading this correctly, he has 9 shells remaining. Okay, let's see what he does with that. So then what changed as well is that obviously much more powerful vehicles came into the game and more nations, etc. But APHE still got it. APHE, when you get the pen, is still the king of post-penetration damage effect. And so this tank at 6.3 does much better than at 6.7. And also the T29 in the meantime has seen also a battle rating increase from 6.7 to 7.0. So you can see there are now 2 battle rating steps apart after many fixes and changes. And the T29 was so much more powerful when it was at the same battle rating as this tank. So I think that, I don't know what Gaijin uses to determine the initial battle rating of tanks. And I think when it comes to playtesting, this tank was never up there with the Tiger II. It was a field modification. The spaced armor was taken from Panther tanks, if I'm not mistaken. And there you can also see the 2 tubes on top of the tank. That are the springs that assist, I think, the elevation of the long-barreled 90mm, which is really long-barreled. So, yeah. Let's see what the rest of the battle is all about. And there you can see we are like, what, 2/3 through the match now? Yeah, but the action really starts now. So the M26 stormed forward and tries his luck, but then there are at least 2 enemy tanks. And yeah, he tries to stay in the back. And there is the IKV-103, and I would have taken that shot. But you never know about the hit models of those rocks, if they are really absorbing the shell in flight, although visibly it should have gone through. It can happen, so I totally understand the hesitation. Not that much armor, and that was a sad bounce on the rooftop of the Tiger II-P. And now he has to go back into cover and uses the beautiful 10 degrees of gun depression. And the IKV... yeah, he whiffs this shot, and in return he gets punished for his troubles with penetration, and he cannot lower the gun anymore. Those 2 set springs are now black. He also lost his commander, and his, I guess, gunner is also blood red, if you know what I mean. So the gun handling gets even worse, which is always one of those funny factors that I don't understand. Why does the turret rotation, the gun elevation, etc. suffer when the gunner is injured? I don't know. So he prioritizes here the IKV, but a plane supported him. America was the engine sound. And there is the M4 Tipo IC. I'm always tempted to say Tipco. I don't know why, but yeah, whatever. And again, there he sees the Panther tank and he falls back for the reload. Smart and sensible decision. Target 2P also is around the corner. No, that was a Target 2H. Sorry about this. So he deleted him because he turned the turret, which was not the greatest usage of his armor. And he just waits and reloads. And look where he is. He is the only guy on this entire flank for his team. The rest of his team are having the middle of the map and they are still in possession of A. And he uses this hull down ridgeline position. Target 2P sprays him with machine gun. But he has the situational awareness. He sees the Panther and he reverses. Smart decision. And he gets the gun on the target first. Beautiful. He was also lucky that the Target 2P seems to have slept for a bit. STRV-74, dangerous tank, but also very dangerous gun, mostly with dangerous ammunition. He focuses the Target 2P, and this time he goes through the very angled turret front and one-shots him again. So he never has used 2 shells for an enemy target. And that's already 11 kills, but he only has 2 shells remaining. Does he whiff the shot versus the STRV-74? No, he doesn't. Again, overmatch off the turret roof. Beautiful kill number 12. And now he's on his last shell. He's on his last shell. He could fall back to the objective and reload, but the match comes to an end. And let's see if he can make it work. Is there an enemy coming? I mean, he put himself into a defensive location in front of the objective, in front of and between also the enemy spawn. This is far from spawn camping. The map is pretty small. The map design is not the greatest, but that's not his fault. He's playing the game as it is given to him by Gaijin. You cannot really blame him. And then there is the dealer turn that got deleted, and that's kill number 13 with the last shell. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the match. What a great game. Let's just have a look at the post-battle results. And that is a dream result. So 106,000 silver lines, nearly 20,000 research points, and on top of this, the Survivor and the Heavy Metal Hero Award. The rewards overall made a fifth of the overall silver line income, 13 penetrations, 13 critical hits therefore, and 13 clean kills. With the last shell, he killed the last enemy in this match, and he also captured 1 zone. That is one hell of a result. I would be really proud of getting such a clean result. And I think that it just showed that the tank still got it, that the battle rating reduction really helped him. There is just one problem for all the other tanks that now have to deal with a tank that actually has useful armor. And yeah, what a beautiful match. So Andromatic made in 2 various distinct things everything right. First of all, he didn't overextend. He was playing together with his team. He held position. He was prioritizing the targets. He kept his cool. And yeah, a lot of things came together. Also a little bit of luck that he wasn't rushed by 20 enemy tanks, you know. And so he was rewarded with this great result. And it was a bit of luck, but also definitely a lot of skill. Knowing about the game mechanics where you can pen the enemies. And he made use of the strength of the tank. And the next thing is, he not just only attached the real replay, not the server replay, the original replay, he renamed it correctly, and also he sent those 2 result screenshots, because without those result screenshots I cannot really judge what happened overall in the battle. I can only guess, and also the server replay doesn't really work for presentation purposes that well. So Andromatic, many thanks for sending in this great result, this great replay, the way that you did. I enjoyed how you played. I enjoyed the match itself. So that was one hell of a gameplay that I love to feature, and I hope you guys enjoyed as well. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Please give this video a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other in the skies and on the battlefields of War Thunder.